Hello and welcome to Proof Through You. Here on this channel, my goal is to strive to encourage you to grow in what you know and to walk by faith so that God's faithfulness can be proved through you. So today we are going to be talking about financial stewardship. So what exactly is financial stewardship? Well, first of all, it is about being intentional. You want to be intentional about your income, about your paycheck. You want to know, when is it expected? How much are you expecting it to be? How often are you expecting it to arrive? Do you have a backup plan? Maybe you have a side hustle, or maybe you're working multiple jobs, or maybe you get paid under the table. Either way, you still want to be intentional about those finances. The other thing about financial stewardship is it's a lifelong learning process. And I've heard a lot of times, I've heard people say, well, budgeting are for broke people. And I believe that could not be further from the truth. Everyone needs a budget, and wealthy people have budgets too. They just use accountants to help them budget, or investors to help them budget their finances. So budgeting and financial stewardship is a lifelong learning process. With every increase, you will find that you may have to adjust from the previous season that you were in, or maybe you are just now starting your financial journey and you have to learn the literary terms. You have to learn what is a budgeting system. You're learning what it is to invest. You're learning what the term risks is, and IRAs and all of those things. So no matter what stage of life you find yourself in, financial stewardship is also a learning process. And thirdly, I believe that when we are good stewards over the little things, that is when we will be rewarded with bigger things. And that comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 25, verse 23. Well, there was a man who entrusted 3 of his workers to some finances for him, and they knew what type of person he was. They knew that he liked to get a return on his investment. 2 of the 3 were able to help him increase his funds. 1 was not. And for the 2 who were able to do what he expected them to do, he said, well done. And because you have been faithful over a little bit of these things, I'm going to make you ruler over many of these things. And sometimes we have to allow God to shape us and mold us in the little things so that we don't mess up the big things when they do arrive. And boundaries are not really about punishment. They're really for our protection. So for example, I remember I was praying for an apartment, a bigger apartment, and then I wanted a house. And I did not get approved for the home loan. And I remember clear as day, God telling me, you have not done what I've asked you to do. You're working 3 jobs. You're making more money than you've ever made, but you're still living paycheck to paycheck. So why would I bless you with a house when you cannot maintain your apartment? Did y'all hear those crickets? Okay, so yeah, it was a full-on chin check moment for me. So realizing that yes, we may need more money. Yes, we may obtain to be millionaires and billionaires or thousandaires. You still have to start with a small discipline so that when you do get that increase, you know how to steward it well. Now, if you want to join me on this financial stewardship journey, there are a couple of tools you may need. Number 1, I am a pen and a paper girl. I like to write down my numbers because it seems more real to me that way. So I use a notebook, or I will use a paper planner. For those of you who like electronics, you could always do an electronic or a digital planner. There are some banking apps that have budgeting systems inside that, but I'm talking specifically about people who want to use pen and paper and touch, the spending habits and touch the lack of savings so that it becomes more realistic in your eyes. You'll also need a basic calculator. You could use one on your phone, or you could use the one that the children are going to put away in the next 3 weeks because school is almost out. And you'll also need dedicated check-ins. Now, the check-ins are not so that you can tell everyone your business. It's just to hold you accountable to yourself. What days of the week do you plan on spending 30 minutes to take a look at your spending habits? Spending 30 minutes to take a look at where you want your money to go on payday. That's what the dedicated check-in is about. And then you're obviously going to need something to write with unless you are using a digital or electronic system. Now, how can I be a financial steward? Well, first you want to start with where you are. congratulate yourself on even having the conversation and being aware that, hey, I need to change something. What I've been doing isn't working. I realize, financial stewardship is not some get rich quick scheme. It's going to take some work. So number one, start with where you are, because you can't go back and redo yesterday. You can't go back and re-get that settlement money. You can't go back and retake that course. You know what I'm saying? You can't go back and rebuild certain things. So instead of weeping for what was, let's plan to rejoice for what could be and start exactly where you are today. The second thing I want to remind you of is to give yourself grace. Yes, you want to take accountability for how you're spending your money, but where you are now is not the end unless you choose to allow yourself to stay in this pattern. Taking ownership of where you are financially, it can be a tough pill to swallow. It's not always a pretty picture, but at least you have a clear vision for where you want to go, what you have been doing, and the roads that you don't want to go back and take again. Okay? And taking accountability, that's really all it is, because on this journey of financial stewardship, a budget doesn't mean you're never going to overspend. You're never going to undersave. That's not what it means. A budget is just a vision for how you want your money to go. That's simply all it is. Okay. And then the next thing you want to do on your path to financial stewardship is prepare to build disciplines. In Hebrews 12:11, it says, nobody is pleased with discipline. It's not pleasant to anybody, but there is a harvest of righteousness awaiting those who have been prepared by it. So no, discipline is not fun. It's not fun turning down brunch. It's not fun not being able to buy those new shoes. It's not fun having to do your own hair because you're saving money. Or even if you want to get your own hair done or cut, that's fine. But what are you going to scale back in order to do that? If hair care is just, no, that's non-negotiable for me. Okay, so maybe instead of eating out, I'm just gonna have to cook these 2 weeks. Why? Because I refuse to give up my hair care routine, and that's fine. But the discipline is saying to yourself, okay, come on, sis, come on, bruh, let's be real. If I'm gonna spend an extra $100 on my hair, the $100 has to come from somewhere else. And if you don't have multiple sources of income, if you don't even have the time or the capacity to get a second or third job, if you're working with the money that you have and you're putting that extra $100 towards hair care, that means it has to be removed from some other area in your budget, some other area in your spending. So on the path to financial stewardship, just be prepared to build that discipline. And then lastly, focus on your process. If you are not somebody who becomes encouraged by the people who are ahead of you, if they don't motivate you to strive to do better, but it makes you feel discouraged, it makes you feel left out, it makes you feel left behind, focus on your own process, because the Bible teaches us that comparison is the thief of joy. So do not compare your right now to somebody else's story. You don't know what they had to go through to get to where they are. You don't have access to all parts of their story, especially if it's on social media. You're only seeing what they want you to see. Okay, but only you have access to your entire process. And as the Williams brothers said, sweep around your own front door before you try to sweep around somebody else's. Okay, get your house in order. We got to get our house in order before we go off telling other people how to live their life, telling other people how to use their tax refunds, telling other people whether or not they can take trips and invest. Don't worry about what other people are doing. You have access and authority to be your own financial steward. Okay, so that's what we want to focus on. Focus on your own process. Okay. Now, if anything that I've shared so far today has been helpful for you, I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. If you're looking for quick reels or shortcut tips, you can follow me over on Instagram at Prove Through You. And as always, if you have any comments or questions, I would love for you to leave them down below. But if you have like a personal testimony or maybe something that you don't want to share publicly, feel free to email me. My email address is provedthroughyou@gmail.com. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you on the next video where we will continue our discussion about financial stewardship and budgeting. Have a blessed day.